Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. It's late here on Monday night in our Secrets of Healing study group, Skype Live. And we just had a very interesting workshop called The Nature of Darkness, Part 3. So we can use this study group to maybe discuss questions that have arisen, out of this webinar workshop, and in specifics, the last slide that I showed here. Let me see if I can share the screen with you. Yeah, finally everything is working. Yeah, so are you seeing the slide on your screen? The duality of darkness. Are you guys all seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I need the feedback because I can't see what you guys are seeing. All right, so we don't really need to go through this. Many of you are seeing this for the first time. Who's seeing this slide for the very first time?
This looks like an upgrade from the other one that you do.
Yes.
The 3, yeah.
So Cindy,
really good.
Sorry, yeah. So we just discussed this in the Nature of Darkness Part 3, and I've added this slide to the other slides that I've had about describing the nature of darkness. So I want to first ask if there's any questions in regard to this. We in the workshop we went through slides and we went through a systematic build-up to with this. But right now, I would really like to get some feedback from you guys. How this information is sitting with you. How are you handling this? How does this feel to you? Naming darkness, describing it in fields and entities, and sort of really facing, some of these things. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm really enjoying it, Jona. I think it just gives us a more of a rarefied view, a more sophisticated outlook on, rather than just seeing darkness as darkness. Mm-hmm. It's a sophisticated, and it allows for like a greater differentiation of how these forces impact us. Mm-hmm. One thing that I can see down the bottom there with the Asuric, you've got, and then the overlap with the Ahrimanic, you've got the automatic nervous system and glands. Mm-hmm. The Luciferic and Asuric, you've got the I am awareness. And I was just wondering if you could clarify how those tie in together.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So actually what's missing here is actually the senses. Oops. Okay. So this is another series that I've done a few years back, talking about the level of sensations and where what takes place. Okay, and this connection here between the body and the senses, the heart and our mobility, the etheric, how it affects our glands, the astral, how it affects our nervous system, and the soul aspect of us, the I am, the Christ consciousness in us, the blood. Okay, that is something that you, at this point, just have to take from me like this, okay? This is coming from a self-healing standpoint, because when somebody has issues with these aspects or dimensions of self, then these darknesses will densify in these areas of that person. Mm. Yeah.
Jona, that the ANS and the glands and the nervous system is the most dense, the most physical, and that's where the Ahrimanic forces inhabit, and the Luciferic is the less dense, and
yeah, it's more here in the senses and the mobility.
Yeah, senses, which is
it plays on our I am awareness. It plays on it, okay, because it gives an illusion of it. Okay, hang on a second. I'm pointing at something. Can you even see this? Let me double check what you're seeing right now. Yeah, you can see this, right? You can see my pointer when I move it. Hang on. When I do this, you can see this, right? Can you see my?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no. Good.
Okay, so when I switch slides here, you can see this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. There's a function in Skype with the screen sharing that's quite complicated because it gives me like 15 different options, different screens, all the tabs that I have open, and I have to make sure that you're seeing what I am seeing. Okay, so yeah, so this is something, Julianne, you saying this like you've read this somewhere or you studied this somewhere. How do you know that? How do you know that?
Through you, I suppose, when you've talked about in the past about Ahriman and how it's the coldest, densest, it's the most physical. So Ahrimanic forces are connected to the physical, having things, money, not the coldness there, and that the Luciferic forces are, which I was more attracted to, was away with the fairies, building castles in the sky, not, all the New Age teachings where we just bypass everything. So that's more in the sensing, feeling, and the physical, the nervous system.
So
that's
now you have to look at the consequences. Okay, so when somebody's astral and etheric, when that is disturbed, when that is hindered, it pulls the person into the physical. Yeah, because they no longer feel the connection here. Okay, it pulls them here in the attempt to find some safety. Yeah, it pulls them into, the materialism of things, because that's all there is. Yeah, it's all there is from that perspective. Versus when somebody gets pulled into the artificial light, yeah, the airy fairy, the alternate reality. Yeah, when they're going into, this, the physical does no longer exist. Yeah, this is why some of us who get pulled into the Luciferic often report physical harm, physical and emotional harm. Does this make sense? Yeah, so we must differentiate between where what is located and where what works. Okay, what it does to the person. Okay, so the Luciferic attacks this and pulls you into the astral. Often also the etheric. Yeah, and the harmonic disturbs the connection here and pulls you into the body. But often pulls people into the mind only. And this is also where, this reductionism occurs. Everything is being rationalized and mentalized. The self-healer needs to know this part here, because this is where you will find but by reading the symptoms that you have, okay, you will then be able to know better what needs to be healed, what is distorted, what is hindered. Yeah,
So
so
the Asuric then is one step up. It's going in between
yes.
soul. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a one step up. It goes. It's the blood cult. Okay, so the blood cult is basically the counterforce to the Christ consciousness, and that's by the way what Stuart got wrong. Now he got that right. That the Catholic Church has messed with that. Okay. And the expressions of that, the outer expressions of that, we can see that in the arrival of the Inquisition. So the Inquisition was a highly Luciferic overtaking, of Christianity at the time. There was Luciferic in nature. It didn't pull people here, okay? It pulled them away. And literally destroyed them. Yeah, literally destroyed them. Through desperation, through utter heartbreak, and physical cruelty and torture. Okay. So in history, there's different densifications of these forces, and also incarnations. This is very important to understand. In spiritual science, you can learn this. Okay, you can learn all the different the epochs and eras that we went through, and which the forces were that sort of that worked as sort of the main hindering forces. And once you see the big picture, you also understand the purpose of them. The Luciferic energy, okay, which is symbolized in our, getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. All spiritual teachings, ancient teachings, have like sort of a fall in their creation story, where humans fell out of, sort of the naive happiness of everything just being perfect. No worry whatsoever. Yeah, all spiritual teachings have that in common. The fall, out of the Garden of Eden, which is basically the if you will, seen as a developmental stage of spiritual evolving, okay, is the umbilical cord, is the where you're just being fed, so you're being nurtured through the spiritual. You don't need to worry about anything. You can't make any choices. You're just really existing. It's a very low level. It's not dark. It's just a low level of spiritual involvement. Okay, you being spoon-fed. You being, you're being still attached like an infant, or breastfed. Okay, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to decide anything. But you also can't go anywhere. You can't choose anything. It's a low level of spiritual involvement because you're not really you yet. You have no way of telling yourself as an individual. The infant, up until the 18 months, roughly 2 years, is empathetically linked to the mother or the caregiver and cannot differentiate its own body from the caregiver. There's a very long process here in this evolutionary journey that we do as humans. Long, a year and a half, 2 years long, until we actually discover that we are separate. So that discovery that we are separate is the fall. symbolically, metaphorically, it's described in Eve eating from the tree of knowledge. Yeah, eating this apple, the tree of knowledge. What was that? Okay, so we got the serpent there, which is the symbol for the Luciferic. Okay, talking her into it. Hey, sort of tempting her into curiosity. Don't you want to understand how things work? Yeah. You're just following orders. You're just doing things that you're being told. You have no own choice. Don't you want to have your own choices? Don't you want to have freedom? And so that temptation of the Luciferic force is what first created the fall. Yeah. And of course, sort of a separation anxiety, a separation discomfort, because all of a sudden, you could experience dark and light. Before, you could only experience light. Now you could experience dark and light. Day and night. Duality was born. Okay. So as soon as the I awareness arises in us humans, on one hand, we experience, this is the terrible twos, a higher level of freedom, because now we can run off and do whatever we want to do. We have no clue yet as to what the dangers in the world are and what's good for us and what's not, but we're mobile. We can run away. We can go wherever we want to go. And it feels good. It feels good. Riding through the wind. Okay, that kind of feeling. Freedom. But it comes with a price. What's the price? Well, we lost our naivete. We lost our unconsciousness here, because we now have to become aware of our surroundings. Have to deal with stuff. Have to learn of all the dangers that are out there. So anyone here who has raised children knows what that does to children. They get hurt a lot, don't they? They get hurt a lot. And with each of these learning experiences, the child becomes a little wiser and forms sort of a framework, a roadmap for what to do and what not to do. But at that level, right after the fall of the Garden of Eden, there was no real sort of concept of what this world is all about. All we felt with our senses was what felt good and what didn't feel good. Sympathy, antipathy. Oh, that hurts. No. Oh, that feels good. Yeah. Can you follow me here, guys? This is how we evolve spiritually, and how every human evolves in the course of their lives. As above, so below. Phylogenesis and ontogenesis. The development of one life and the development of it all. The microcosm and the macrocosm. It's all the same. The template is the same. So coming back to the Luciferic forces, that brought in the impulse. Now listen carefully. This is very important, and this is high-level spiritual science. That brought in the impulse for freedom. Julian, you described this as the very, very, creating, some kind of alternate reality, some kind of escape route. It's nothing but, sort of a high level of avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. It is based on our senses, and has to do with our mobility. It has to do with us being able to move away from things, like a protozoic one-celler organism. Okay, when something is poisonous, it will be repelled, and when something is food, nurturing, it will go to it. That's the description. It's a coded way of describing the state of consciousness at that time. At that time. And it was Lucifer, was the Luciferic force that brought that in. Okay, brought that in by promising the freedom of a better kingdom. You know, there's something better out there. Don't you want to know about it? Let's explore the better world. Yeah, that's freedom. That has created the first sort of onset of an ego. Okay, no, I want this. No, I want that. I don't want that. Okay. But it's not very high developed yet, because it's really all, when I called sympathy and antipathy, we're talking about a very rudimentary judgment system. Yeah, that just goes by, you know, what feels good at the moment. There's no discernment here. So when somebody gets too far out into the Luciferic world of, you know, finding a better kingdom, building a better world, they're getting lost out there. They're getting lost because they don't actually have a navigation yet. They don't have a conceptual understanding of the world. No? So this is mostly sort of the New Age, understanding of spirituality is the promotion, the propagation of, some kind of better world. Yeah, some kind of, let's dive deep into spiritualism. Let's channel everything and just experience it, but not knowing anything about entities, not knowing anything about the nature of darkness, not knowing anything about the dangers of that, and, mystifying everything. And leading to the person getting spiritually lost. Yeah, it's sort of an over spiritualization. It's out of balance. It's too far out. So the Luciferic forces, they have obviously, existed, from that moment on here or were allowed to have an effect on this Earth's plane. From the moment of the fall, or the getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And then another force started to become able to enter this earthly plane, and that was the harmonic forces. That comes from the times of Zarathustra. Okay, this really old ancient Persian time, okay, where rationalism and materialism started to take over. Yeah, where everything was about power, was about control. Where we see sort of the first onset of governments and laws and all these things, and more and more moving away from a spiritual reality altogether. It's this feeling of loneliness, like forsaken. God forgot about you. If God forgot you, you're not good enough. You have to be better. You have to perform. You have to be productive. You have to prove, that if there is a God, that you are worth it. And this is the force that then, sort of works in us here in our development of consciousness, in these sort of elementary age. Where you first see yourself as something that is performing. You're performing in a way. You're being measured by your performance. And you seek the esteem, the validation from the outside. This is also, harmonic forces also pull a person very, very strongly into validation. Right? Either the validation from outside or from, the inside. So the extreme of that would be narcissism. But narcissism can exist in both of these realms, and the harmonic and luciferic forces have worked together. They create a little bit of a sort of a seesaw here, because it's easy to recognize or to imagine that they both represent sort of the extreme. Yeah, they're getting pulled into sort of hyper spiritualized state, and getting pulled into the hyper materialized state. And for the last 600 years, this harmonic force has become extremely dense. We are at the peak of the density of this harmonic field right now. Yeah, we are controlled, and this is really what mind control is: fear, illusion, deception. By a materialist paradigm. Yeah, life itself is defined, legally defined, as brain function. Everything is just based on materialism. Yeah, I mean, this whole sort of discussion around science and statistics and all this, those are all very typical ways of Ahriman using, its deceptive powers. It's all just figures, numbers. Look at our monetary system and so forth. It's all, just reduced. Yeah, and with our rapid technological advancement right now, things are literally reduced to ones and zeros. Yeah, so we're entering a time now where, after the Ahrimanic forces have really taken foothold in people's psyche in such way that they are now completely denying that there is something like a spiritual reality. Yeah, if we can't measure it, yeah, with our mechanical tools, then it doesn't exist. Yeah, if I can't fathom it with my five senses, it doesn't exist. That's Ahrimanic. Okay, and we're now at the peak of that, and at this very peak now, where technology and sort of the materialism comes together, that's where we see transhumanism now. Okay, so this is actually here, should be here, transhumanism is sort of a step further. Okay, so harmonic forces are completely focused on 3D only. Yeah, it's where when a person is so limited in their perception that all they can see is their physical 3D existence. They do not believe that there is anything outside of that, and therefore, get pulled into the fear of death. Now, these etheric forces that are coming in right now that are taking this a step further, they're going as far as saying, well, there is something like a light, but we can control it. We can assume it. We are it. Okay, so Lucifer knew that he wasn't it. He was just offering an alternative light. Yeah, an alternate reality. It's important to understand. Yeah, like an artificial reality. Or let's say augmented reality. Okay. Now, these etheric forces in people are now telling them that they can harness consciousness. They can, implant some kind of machine into them, including nanoparticles or, some kind of neural link or whatever. And that would connect them with divine consciousness. Or that would catapult them into the state of illumination through, either these mechanical devices or through some kind of black magic. This is very dangerous. Well, obviously, we're not used to that kind of other, degradation of the light. We are used to the transfiguration of light, which is Lucifer, and we are used to the atheist, the materialist, the denying of the light. But we are not used to the rejection of the light. The rejection of the light is literally, handing over your spiritual ID and saying, I don't need that anymore. There's a better one out there. I'm going to buy into that one instead. And, Jared, to come back to your question, how these work on our different physical systems, okay, is through observation. That is what spiritual science has done, for thousands of years, to observe this. So the reason why, Julianne, you have studied Chinese medicine, you're a doctor of Chinese medicine, why this is so familiar to you is because in Chinese medicine, in Ayurveda, in all of the ancient healing arts, that is described. And so we can, as self-healers or healers, now take advantage of this knowledge that was transported through the centuries and millennia, and I say, okay, that's how this goes. So if I can use this to reverse engineer. If I have issues with my mobility apparatus, there's got to be something here in the area of the most known, the psychological, delusions, perhaps of reality that I don't want to accept. And if I am unable to do self-care altogether, if I am disconnected from all my senses, here on this even denser level of the physical reality, then I'm experiencing trauma. Trauma that has to do with, me being not enough connected. The connectedness is hindered, all the way to people who cannot feel their bodies. I was one of them. And, trauma can also cause that. So when you go a little deeper into spiritual studies, you'll recognize that there is no such thing as causation. There is an effect, but that effect, is also the cause at the same time. So we can say that, people who have a lot of trauma, like me, they also experience very high levels of disconnectedness from their physical. Well, you can also say, and this is what the psychologist would say, well, as a consequence of trauma, these people experience high levels of disconnectedness from their body. I dispute that because I had a disconnectedness from my body before I had trauma. I do actually have conscious awareness of that. I was born that way. Anyhow, that's another discussion, what was there first. But and this is a karma discussion. But to to answer your question, Jared, okay, we can observe this. You can observe, you know, where those forces work and how they then manifest, in which of the human systems they manifest. Yeah. Here with the spiritual astral, it doesn't just manifest in the autonomous nervous system, but also all the systems that are regulated by the autonomous nervous system, which is the cardiovascular and the respiratory and the digestive system. Okay. But all diseases of the blood, all distortions of the blood, all manipulation of the blood is fundamentally etheric in nature. Yeah. Everything that has to do with the glands, with hormones, and, you know, with heart disease and lung disease, yeah, is linked to, you know, the heart disease, the lung disease, and the anxiety, the nervous system with the astral, and the glands and hormones here with the etheric. Everything that has to do with skeletal issues, joints, mobility stuff is linked to the emotional, psychological distortions. And people who have sensory integration issues, yeah, you know, that's a distortion straight in the physical. So it depends on which way we look at it, Jared. Okay. These are the product of, you know, thousands of years of research. So we know that it does that. Yeah, we know that it does that. For us as self-healers, that's an important information. Now let's do a double check here. Let's check on that. Many of you are quite familiar with, you know, these core fears and the inner darknesses that you have, and what your susceptibilities are, where you primarily experience, you know, terror or imbalances. So if you look at, you know, sort of this graph here, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it from the perspective of symptoms that have manifested in you, or you can look at it from the perspective of the realm that you're able to go into, or you can look at it from the perspective of, you know, psychology, the level of self. Which do you identify as, you know, sort of the one that is most affected in your life? I, for my part, and I know this today, was under the influence of Luciferic forces until I was 14, very intensely, and then under the influence of harmonic forces until I was 28, 29. Very intensely, both. I can feel it. It's both of these, yeah, entities here play a big role in my own consciousness development. They create a lot of terror, a lot of imbalance, a lot of damage. Luciferic, mostly damage in my physical violation, and the harmonic, mostly, you know, damage here, you know, in the glandular area. It's not that bad yet, okay, even though I'm almost 60, but it's something that I can, for myself, if I just look at symptoms that I have, yeah, can perceive as sort of my weaknesses, yeah, my sensory organs and my glands. I don't have issues with mobility at all. and I don't have issues with my autonomous nervous system or blood. So these are the forces that I can identify that have worked on me, and it was in that way. Yeah, first in this the Luciferic way, and then in the second half of my youth in that harmonic way. And if anything, that I don't know, when I became a mother for the first time, which was with 30, I experienced at this point, I had already a high level of energetic perception and soul awareness. If anything, I experienced a change in blood here. Something changed in me, yeah, by becoming a mother. If I look at pictures of me when I was 14, I literally looked older when I was 14 than I look today. Literally. How about you guys? What are some of these forces that you can identify that had an effect on your life? And try to refrain from good and bad. The whole point of diving a little deeper into this is to detach from that. Because if we are seeing everything as good and bad, we're reducing ourselves. What are some of these influences that you can see on your life? Let me go back here to these forces and how they work. The Luciferic is after your light. The harmonic is after your mental constructs, your understanding. And the Etheric is after your consciousness.
So I can go from one to the other in a day if I'm not conscious.
Of course, I mean that's how these forces are always there, and whether they
Yes.
get a grip or foothold in us depends on our energetic state.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you look back at the totality of your own development, you hear, Cindy, you have a very clear understanding of who you are today. Okay. Which means that you're almost immune. Yeah, almost immune to these things. There will always be a pull. Yeah. But if I were to say, if you're susceptible to someone who comes along and says, hey, we have this cool injection, and when you take that, you arrive at divine consciousness overnight, you wouldn't buy into it.
No.
Because you know God. You know God in your heart. And
yes.
in concept as well. You already know. Nobody can tell you, who you are.
And that took a long time to get there too.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about that journey, how to get there.
Yeah.
The different forces that worked in your life. Can you see your own biography? Can you see your own interaction with these forces of light and dark?
Yes. I very much was so in the Luciferic influences for a long time. I was always looking for the exit door,
Mm-hmm.
even when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Narnia, all of these wonderful places. And then as I got older, I got more into the harmonic.
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like that's what I needed to do to belong. That's what I had to do, you know, to survive 3D. And I still struggle with that a little bit.
Okay.
You know, all the things that I have to do, you know. But I know how to get out of it, and that's the key. That's the grace.
So you're saying, this is what I hear you say, that you went too far out here, and then you get pulled too far in here, and today you find yourself in sort of this constant balancing act between the two.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Okay. And that's all that is. Because these harmonic forces will always be there. These luciferic forces will always be there. And the etheric forces are going to get stronger. Just in our daily lives, you know what I mean? Exposure. Yeah. And it's a balancing act. It's always a balancing act. Anybody else? Your own spiritual biography. Your interaction with dark and light forces and how it affected your consciousness development. Julianne, you said something earlier. You said that you were under the strong influence of luciferic, you know, like Cindy just said, you know, seeking the exit, avoiding pain. You know,
avoiding pain.
Yeah, and you can also, you know, you can argue, you can say, you know, and this is then the rationalism of it, you know, well, because there was so much pain, you know, you were forced to doing that. Yeah, we do not want to go into the why right now. We do not want to go into causation. We just want to be spiritual scientists.
Yeah, and they were just like, I can see like it's stages of development. Like, you know, when you're you take the next best thing or something that's slightly better. So when you were speaking about that, it's neither good nor bad, it's just lower vibrational frequency or higher vibrational frequency, so that you're not judging it. But I can see that, yeah, my younger time, and I mean the same as how Cindy said, you know, I was reading Narnia and looking for escape and looking for the exit, not wanting to be here, all of that. And of course, the perfect doorway to walk through is that escapism and illusion and looking for something better. And well, it's not here. I'm going there, you know. And then I suppose when
it's sort of stumbling around, right? It's like blindly stumbling around.
Yeah. And not finding my center at all, and not actually denying the grounding and earthing into this, embracing this experience.
It's just higher and higher, you know. You just want to go away. You want to go
away,
avoid 3D altogether.
Yeah, and then there's many offerings, like you say. There's all the temptations, so it's actually understanding the temptations as well, like seeing how you can easily be tempted, and it's okay. But then it's like, well, wait a minute, that's it's not doing anything. It's not giving me any substance, or
no, but you had to go through it to know it, right?
Had to go through it, yeah. And then I suppose when getting older, and like you say, having a child, having responsibility, it's like, okay, looking at how people live, they making money, wanting, and not being caught in materialism as such, but seeing that to take care of myself and my child, there's a certain amount where I have to actually seek comfort, material, like having a home, having
Yeah, it brought in the harmonic, okay? Because now you got hit by a 3D reality, right? You had to do something.
And it can pull you into like, oh shit, I better hang on to what I've got.
Yep.
I better make
when
money.
the fear comes in. Yeah.
And then the fear comes in, and then it's like, oh my, I'm going to lose it. And realizing when you get money, will you spend it? I need more of that. And also seeing that almost like there can be a acquiring, like, and maybe even when wanting that security and seeing that I can be a bit of a hoarder or like that part, and then actually recognizing that part is just an aspect of fear.
So it's an outer expression of our harmonic forces working through you.
And I think when you talk about the Asuric, that is, I don't want to die. I don't know. Maybe that's it. I
don't want to die is harmonic still.
Harmonic. Okay.
Yeah, because
taking care of yourself and doing things because of fear of.
Well, there's nothing after death, you know. So it's, you know, you may have a
belief. I didn't have that belief.
No, theoretically you don't. But if you can get pulled into the fear of dying or death, okay, then that means that it's only theoretical. It's not strong enough. That faith that there is a soul, a spirit being.
I just see that, and then coming into that, I can see that I am both. I have both in me. I have the Ahrimanic in me, and I have the Luciferic in me. Only different now is that I can discern when I'm getting pulled one way or the other, and I come back to center and go, okay, and I can discern that's where I'm getting pulled and what that energy is. And I'm like, all right. And it's okay. I'm not judging it. And
but do you understand what this did for you? How you got here? It's through studying it, through facing it, through learning about it. Okay.
And seeing what it did, like, because sometimes we go unconsciously into these places and we can look back. It's only when we look back we look what happened there as well. It's all the experience of it, and then actually grounding it and going, this is what it is.
Yeah, and this also helps with the forgiveness, doesn't it? If you see that as a natural, and this is the part that I want to really get across here, if you see this as part of your natural consciousness development, you have to go through these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to come to this place of discernment.
We don't judge it. There's no judgment. It's like, I see what this life experience is.
Yeah. It's like a 2-year-old has to go through this. And a 5-year-old has to go through stuff, and a 14-year-old has to go through things. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. This is part of this metamorphosis from, this sort of, spiritual baby into a spiritual mature being. Yeah, that knows that it's a soul, that it's having a physical experience, and that the whole point of that is to deserve, to earn its own evolution. Why? And this is now here where it gets interesting. Why? Because in order to ascend, if you will, the word is not a good word, but in order to, level up in this spiritual hierarchy, if you will, in your spirit being, your soul that sent you here. Your soul sent you here for a training camp. Okay? You need to be able to master aspects of your power. Because if you can't master, your body, your emotions, your thinking, your spiritual perceiving, if you can't master that, you're going to tap in the dark in the spiritual realm. When we practice energetic visioning, guys, we are practicing for the afterlife. You are developing your spiritual vision and navigation abilities so that you are able to evolve your spirit. Without Lucifer, without the Luciferic forces that brought in the impulse of freedom, yeah, the fall from or out of the Garden of Eden was a fall. It was a fall. They say fall. Have you ever asked yourself why it's called fall? It's called that in all languages. Because something in you descended. Something in you had to be sacrificed. What had to be sacrificed when you got kicked out of Eden?
Innocence.
Yep. Spot on. In order to gain freedom. When you then in your spiritual teenagehood, had to go through the temptation or the pull into the 3D, into the physical only, into the harmonic aspect of darkness. What did that bring in? What is the impulse? Look at how Ahriman tempts you. He tempts you through fear, illusion, and deception, through untruth. What does that teach you when you go through this? What's the training program here?
Responsibility and truth.
Yeah, truth.
Yeah, truth.
The ability to discern truth. Yeah, so Lucifer brought in the impulse of freedom and trained you. Well, so we're going this Luciferic temptation in assuming responsibility, self-responsibility, because with freedom comes responsibility. With the ability to rationally think, to create your own insights. Which can also be, the error perception and the illusion. In its dark expression, in its light expression, is the ability to discern truth. So the Luciferic training program is the training program in learning how to become self-responsible, how to assume freedom, how to internalize it. With the harmonic training program comes the ability to discern truth, to discern untruth or illusion from truth. How do we go through these training programs? Well, by basically falling for it. Yeah, just like kids, they fall for everything. Okay, because they don't have enough experience yet. So through these training programs, we gain. Okay, we gain something. We learn something. Let me add that here. Freedom. Now, some of you have been following me for a while. Okay, and know that there is a Trinity here, and you can recognize that. Does anybody recognize the Trinity? That I keep repeating over and over and over again everywhere.
Freedom, truth, and love.
All right, so now you understood what the third training program is. It's obviously not the romantic love. What kind of love? What are we talking about here when we're talking about these kind of resonances?
The love that brought us into existence, the God spark.
Yeah, divine love, unconditionality, the care for something outside of ourselves, the care for nature, the care for others. Stewardship, collaboration, equality, empathy, all these human qualities that we have. And that is what the etheric forces work with. Take that away from you. So remember how I always say, well, you need to experience unfreedom, you need to experience untruth, and you need to experience unlove to become aware of them and to choose them. If you look at dark forces in this way, guys, it will take away all the fear. Can you feel that? Is there a sense of empowerment that you are getting from this information? Or is it driving you into fear, into more fear? How are you feeling about this right now?
I feel like I want to understand it more.
Say that again, please.
I feel like I want to understand this more
Okay,
because I've
good.
had all of this before and well still now, but not as much. I have moments of it, but it used to be continuous. So I'm just so grateful to be alive and well. I mean, you know, it's like a miracle for me, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, but if there wasn't an impulse in you that wanted you to go beyond just surviving, just staying alive, I don't think you'd be here. Okay, so there's an impulse in you. How would you describe that impulse?
It's motivation. It's a knowing that there's not something better, but just for more fulfilling that I don't have to justify because I did that a lot. I'd always come off as if I had been in a boxing match with just about anyone. So I think that's becoming stronger for me or everyone actually in the last, I don't know, several years, plus or minus. I think that alone, and the pain that came with that, has motivated me to to be here right now with you guys, really, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to connect and share. So, oh my God, okay, so that's such a relief in a way. But then, oh, what's my thing is my anticipation thing of what's next.
That's
And
the
I've
fear,
realized
right? That's the fear.
I thought my forcefulness that I've had to really look at.
Mm.
And where it really comes from is the feeling of being misunderstood. And I've
Okay.
had to pull back and say, I can't put that on other people, but that I can find a way of expressing my honest truth with or without the approval of others. And that's been scary but empowering. And when I go into the fear of when someone's actually actively biting at me at my ankles, I can pull back if I choose and say, that's not necessarily what's going to, there's not necessarily going to be an outcome of this. It could be just a threat.
So validation, approval from the outside, that's all part of externalizing, which means when you suffer from, this need to be understood, this need to get this approval from the outside, it's a Luciferic force that works with you. Yeah. It tells you that you need that from the outside in order to know who you are and where you're going. All right, so all you really got to do is understand that, the nature of that. That's a delusion, Sean. It's a delusion because, you can have 1 million followers and they can all tell you how great you are and how impactful it is that you have to say and that you represent, but it's not going to do anything for any of these.
Yeah, and that's something that I actually know. It's just because I have a lot of time with myself. I get it like okay for myself, but then I get caught out through the projections of Hollywood and stuff like that. I admit that, and that's why I find irreverence in how in my personality with people, and that's, I don't know, I think it's a coping mechanism, but I also think it's just laughing at the stupidity of some things that are put on me and that I put on others as well.
Well, it's a force that comes in from the outside. So Hollywood, media, social media, news, all that, those are all forces that come in from the outside. It's exposure. Yeah. And I've tried to explain that, and I don't have the perfect way of explaining this yet so that it kind of kicks in right away with everybody. But, every era sort of has a different speciality, like what it's supposed to bring to humanity. So this has nothing to do with our individual path. That is the path of the overall development of consciousness and humanity. Okay, and as these overall training programs, if you will, again here it's ontogenesis equals phylogenesis. So we go through all these stages, all stages, in one lifetime. But you can also see that humanity goes through it as such, and you can even go further into cosmic development of consciousness and see that the planets go through this, etc. That's a link here with astrology. Okay. So as you are recognizing that is something that you have to go through, okay, you can detach from that and ask yourself, what kind of forces do you want to expose yourself? Do you want to expose yourself to, these dense fields that are coming in through the collective right now? Would you feel the same way if you lived in a society where, these love vibes, these things that come with, empathy, that come with equality, that come with collaboration, that come with caring, that come with this stewardship? Would you feel the same way? Probably not, because the outer conditions would be different. Do you know what I mean? So that said, let's have a look at these outer conditions that we're in today. Let's investigate how these Luciferic, these Ahrimanic, and Etheric forces are currently, how they're being broadcasted, how they are composing what we're exposed to. Let's practice that here for a moment. You said Hollywood. We all know what you mean with that, right? Everybody knows what Sean means with Hollywood. It's a projection.
Yeah, the ideal human, and
the
knowing
glitter.
what to say at every moment, and the stories and how they just flow out of someone's mouth. My dad did that, and all it did was create more severing of truth and even warmth, that it became dangerous for all of us, including him. And now he's got stage 4 cancer, and he's in his early 60s. So that's a complete need of validation at all costs, and not
It's the
realizing
idealization.
and then not realizing, hey, you've got 3 great kids. That's validation enough. We're not perfect, and we didn't ever have to be. We're different people, and we make our mistakes, and we tell someone to F off. I was too scared to tell anyone to go F off my whole life until my middle 30s, and it can be liberating, but then it's also like, well, think about that again. That's going to another extreme of false freedom. It's like teenagehood. So yeah,
Hollywood
yeah,
is a form, is Luciferic forces.
it's escapism.
Yes, it's a form of idealization. It's a form of externalization. And it really is just a delusion. The delusion of perfect, the delusion of something better. So when we buy into all these projections that come through, Hollywood as a metaphor for all the glitter, or, even spiritual idealizations, we're literally buying into the Luciferic forces, allowing them to work through us, allowing them, feeding them. Yeah, that's just what it is. There's nothing scary about this. You just got to know this. Because the conscious I can say, I don't really want that. Do I want that? No, I don't want that. I don't need that. So I stay away from it. Because it's going to pull me into it. The more I look into the abyss, the more the abyss is going to stare back at me. I'm using the word Christ consciousness not in the Christian sense. Well, it is Christian because it hints at the role that Christ played, not Jesus. Okay, so it's important. It's the I am awareness, the Christ light, that entered the physical plane 2,000 years ago. Okay, I'm just saying that here because this, as you can see, is a slide in progress. So I haven't really found the best ways to put this together. So I'm allowing myself to do this while I'm talking with you guys. Okay. So if you know what you're dealing with, it's a lot easier to discern that, isn't it? If I'm telling you now that all this idealization, that we are being injected with or exposed to through Hollywood, through movies, through not all of them, but most of them, through how our media glorifies, as someone you can realize, like, do I really want this? Is this really who I am?
Jona, sorry, can I just add something if you don't mind?
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that every year at this time, it comes down in bucket loads. These Hollywood story, that's everything. There's like a theme, and it's kind of almost predictable if you can track it.
at this time of the year? Specify.
Well, for the last 9 years, at the August, September, October energies, it's always been very extreme for me in finding any balance in internal or external. And I've gone for the self-worth of it all. At this time, I've gone into the external, where the Hollywood stuff is very much so based in the self-worth at this time in the extremes, but there's no balance or any reference points. That's been
So
my experience at this time.
Yeah, so you live on in the southern hemisphere, so there's a connection, obviously with the exposure to light and dark. Okay, so when we talk about eclipses, when we talk about equinox and solstices and so forth, we're always referring to the exposure of light and dark, just so you guys know. That's why these are important events. We want to pay attention to those. Okay, so you're talking about the entry into spring, or and heading towards summer. Summer is the externalized. It's a time where the consciousness externalizes itself. Okay, it's much more. We're much more pulled into the physical and into the ideal and into the expressions and the outer expressions in the summertime, in the summer half of the year. So for you, this is the time where it's heading to that. And you can see this with advertisement and media and so forth, they're amping up on exercise and diet and all this kind of things, because of the beach body. Yeah. Like everything is getting geared toward, like sort of having to be in a certain way, being tanned, being
Yes,
this and
this
that.
is me. Who was
Yeah.
me? Yeah, my God, thank you.
Yeah, so this has to do with the seasons, why you're experiencing this. Now, there is a larger perspective. That's why I inquired about this. There's a larger perspective where, when you say August, September, October energies, have nothing to do with the hemispheres, because it's seen from the solar system, not just from the planet Earth's perspective, but from the solar system. This is something that astrologers can connect to, that no matter where you are on the planet, you are also under the effect of larger cosmic forces. Yeah. And these are different in August, September, October than they are, in December, January, or, March, April, May. Okay.
Thanks for that, Jona. I appreciate that clarifying.
There is something like that, and if those of you are interested in like what this time actually signifies, all right. So is the basically sort of the reawakening of the courage to stand up for truth. So you always have to look at it as a seesaw, how the dark and the light operates. Okay, so whenever the dark gets really strong and dense, okay, it calls in the counterforce. It calls it in. Okay, so at the end of September, here, we're heading toward this now. Okay, it's really, really dense right now. Yeah, the untruth, the deception, all this, like, just look at the media, like all this random revelations and whistleblowers and all kinds of stuff. Okay, the height of confusion, the height of mental confusion in people right now. And that calls in the force. It's a higher spiritual hierarchy that is being called in. Yeah, many refer to that as the Archangel Michael energy that is coming in the end of September. Okay, and that is basically symbolically seen sort of the sword of truth, the courage to stand up for truth. What does this mean? That's how I do energy forecast. It means that I can forecast you that by the end of September, people had enough. That's what that means. You're picking up on something that is there. It's a cosmic force, that comes in every year around that time. It expresses differently in our 3D reality, different, every year. But the tension that you're feeling, and this month I actually commented on the psychic stress that we're experiencing right now, all right, is because of all these cognitive dissonances that are being created in us as these harmonic forces are extremely dense right now. Extremely dense. And so those who know what I teach, you guys, you will hear my forecasts differently. Because I'm actually telling you what it is that you're dealing with. I'm even giving you the chakras and the physical systems it's going to affect. That's why I can do that, guys, because I can see those fields. And some of it is seasonal, and some of it is, just really the different expression of the same, the various the forms of darkness. So I can tell you right now that this is very dense right now. This is also very dense, and this is coming in. So if people are not starting to learn this, if they're not starting to understand who they are, why they're here, and what the forces are that are working on them, they're in for a tough ride. One of these tough rides are coming in here through these etheric forces in form of outer space alien religions. So very, very dangerous. Because it liberates the entire organic, natural development of human consciousness evolution. It tries to alter it. Some call it creating a different timeline, but that's not correct. It's not a timeline. It's actually taking a part of the human population and pulling it into a devolved, lower dimensional, lower astral, 8th sphere dimension. A deformation, an aberration. And that's what we need to understand. And the reason why I wrote these words, DNA and blood, so big, is that it literally hits everybody. How that is being done. That is how it's being done. So, again, I don't want to instill any fear in you. I just want to show you the bigger picture so that you better understand what we're dealing with. Okay? The video of this is going to stay here, but I'm not going to upload that on video on YouTube. Not because I think it's so special, but because I just don't want to scare anybody. Okay? Because if you don't have the foundations, the foundation that we laid in all these other workshops, mastering your thinking, mastering your emotions, mastering your choices, mastering your will, you cannot understand this. These forces of dark have no power. They cannot take your soul away. They cannot take your connection with Christ consciousness or divine consciousness away. They do not have the power to do that. But they can disconnect you through these temptations, through these ways that they're doing this, so much that you can't feel it anymore. that you don't even remember it, what it feels like to be connected. So all of you here who are feeling pain through loneliness, who are feeling the absence of love and truth and freedom in your life, I want to congratulate you, because you can feel it. You can feel what is missing. And now your job is to stand up and go get it. Claim it. Not from others. Others are not supposed to give that to you. That comes with the freedom. You need to choose it. You can't have truth without being willing to let go of your illusions and your fear along with it, because fear is an illusion. And you can't have freedom without assuming responsibility and let go of your temptations and your idealization. And you can't have love with not loving yourself and your own humanhood. And understanding the whole entire developmental cycle that you're in. The caterpillar cannot take a pill and to suddenly become a butterfly, skipping the chrysalis stage just because it doesn't feel like it, or is impatient, or it doesn't believe that there is something like a chrysalis stage. So you guys are all meant to become butterflies, okay? And you're in the caterpillar stage right now. And there's all kinds of temptations and all kinds of aberrations, all kinds of extremes out there that you're exposed to that you need to learn to navigate. The difference between us and the caterpillar is that we have to choose the chrysalis. We have to choose it because we know that there's the butterfly, the metamorphosis that allows us to become the butterfly, that's in there. And we call this spiritual initiation, guys. That is what all this is about. To assume our spiritual adulthood. To recognize that that's what this is all about. And I understand that this is complex, and I understand that this is something that you probably have to hear like 20 times for it to fully kick in. But this is the level of knowing that now needs to come in because of what we're up against. Okay. This is child's play. And even that is. This is rough. Because you're going to be surrounded by a lot of people who have voluntarily rejected their spirit being. Zombies. Who have rejected their freedom and chose apathy instead. Who have rejected truth and chose illusion instead. Being caught in the prison of fear. And who have rejected love as weakness. Yeah, so this is what the study group is like. Yeah, we go deeper into things. And the goal is that you have your own thoughts and have your own insights and have your own conclusions through this. Yeah, by allowing yourself to go beyond just your prefabricated mental or spiritual constructs. It's just like masculine and feminine energies, guys. The Luciferic is very feminine and the harmonic is very masculine. You can't just go out there and try to understand the spiritual realms by just sort of, wildly astral traveling and doing OBEs and taking lots of ayahuasca. That's not going to fly because you have no framework for this. And on the other hand, you can't just sit there and study every spiritual book and every spiritual teaching and expect yourself to be able to navigate spiritual realms. That doesn't work. We have to bring that together. We're now at a point where we have to study. We have to understand these. You guys are doing this. This is what the Sacred Self-Healing Program, this is what the Energy Course, the Soul Self-Initiation, everything that I do is geared toward helping people to bring these things together. The inner experience and the understanding of something. And that's when it happens, guys. That's when you are choosing your own I am consciousness. Because now you know who you are. You're still not going to be perfect and you're still going to have to do the balancing act. That's not the point. The point isn't perfect. The point is to consciously choose truth and to consciously choose freedom and to consciously choose love in its deeper spiritual meaning. And then you're immune. Then you don't need to worry about darkness. Darkness is not interested in people who understand this because there's so many free fodder people out there. They don't need to worry about us. We're way too inconvenient. Okay? You have your own shield when you choose your own I am awareness. But you have to work for it. It doesn't just come to you by doing 200 ayahuasca journeys or, dressing in white or in orange and, singing mantras all day. You will not ever get to this level of understanding of what these forces out there that are working through you. And they're not bad, you see. They're coming in as counter forces, but they're not bad. They're not good either. Okay, there is no such good and bad. There only is evolution. There only is things that drive you toward expansion and enlightenment. And then there are the things that can hinder you. At the end of the day, we'll all arrive there. Like I always say, there's a short way and there's a long way. Long way is through repetition. Short way is through internalizing your journey. Understanding who you are, why you're here, and where you're going. Okay. Yes, so thank you very much. Have a good night. And thank you for your questions. And please come up with more questions, especially when we do the study group on Monday nights. You can post questions right beforehand. Okay, this is where this happens. Through your questions, you are expressing your own insights. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Jona. That was epic.
Beyond was what you truly answered. Love you tapping.
Love you guys. Stay conscious, okay? See you again
Love
soon.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.